What's up, dudes and dudettes to the internet? My name's Seth, and we are back again for some more Trove on Xbox One. How y'all doing today, folks? Hope you're doing fantastically wonderful. Hope this video makes your day even better. I'm gonna try and keep this video less than 40 to 50 minutes for serious, like Jiminy Crockett. Those last few episodes have definitely been very, very long, but we're going through the motions of the beginning of the game, so I'm still gonna kind of treat this as an instructional video before we end up getting to the messing around bit and everyone's just gonna have to deal with it. Yeah, I prepared these glasses for that joke. But anyways, I've been a little bit busy. I have ended up grinding up a bunch of my resources so that we have a little bit more Formosite and Infinium and stuff. Changed my cornerstone a little bit, so I'll show you that today. And most of all, ended up getting strong enough that we can finally enter U1. A couple people have actually, I've heard that the strongest player right now is actually at U7. I'm not actually in a rush or anything like that, but otherwise, yeah, I could see that, especially if you're paying money. I could see that happening. But anyway, before we get started, we very much appreciate if you would hit that like button, folks. Helps me out very, very much. And thank you all so much for the continued support. Like, it's absolutely amazing. And I'm really excited that everybody else has been enjoying the fact that we're starting over, you know? You can find the portal in the hub, gain enough to enter Uber 1. We did just enter Uber 1. Oh, there it goes. Ask around and join someone's club or craft one at the builder's crafting bench. Clubs are their own worlds and chats. No, I wanted to claim that house, but you know what? At least he's got a nicer house than me. But see, look, he ended up crafting 2 personal chests because he doesn't know you only need one of them. And as I said before, if you open up the personal chest, you're only going to see your personal chest inventory, not everybody else's. So he's gonna try and, looks like he's trying to build his cornerstone. So let me see if I can go and find one ourselves here. Ooh, a waterfall. This is actually gonna be a good opportunity for me to talk about this. The way that swimming ends up working in Trove, if you can even call it that, is you pretty much just have infinite jump when you're standing in a pool of water. So they're very, very good for getting up builds or out in the world and stuff like that. This is pretty much all I did with my cornerstone. I just made it so that it's 2 blocks, so it's very inaccessible for any enemies to end up getting into our cornerstone. And maybe I'll end up making it fancy a little bit later on, but honestly speaking, it doesn't really matter right now. And finally, I can make the builder's crafting table. That is what I wanted to make like crazy for today, because otherwise I ended up crafting all the other things that we needed, including the adventurer's crafting table. Let me see here and put the building one down. So the adventurer's crafting bench, this is where things get a little bit crazy here. So there's bombs that we could construct, which as you see here takes primordial flames and shapestone. So of course it's very, very expensive. Then there's the big bombs. Big bombs, as it even says right there, do not destroy dungeons. So keep that in mind, folks. These are very, very good for mining, but they don't destroy dungeons and stuff. And honestly speaking, you can craft 10 bombs for the same resources, and 10 bombs is gonna get you a lot further than 3 big bombs. 1 big bomb can take out a whole ore node, but not really much else. How do I actually how do I end up actually going back? Oh, I see. You gotta do it 1 tab at a time. Okay. So we're going to kind of explain a little bit of this right here. The origin portal, you end up throwing that down and it's going to take you to the spawn point of any world that you've actually walked into. So that one's actually really, really handy. And then here's all the craftable mounts, which is going to take a zillion years to actually get all of these. Steed Feed is one of the most difficult resources to actually grind right at the beginning, especially bleach bone as well. But Steed Feed is an item that you actually need to get out of the gardening profession. So we'll have to deal with that a little bit later, because otherwise here's the gardening right here. Oh, perfect. We actually have the option to do so. So I'm going to actually craft this. And then Runecrafting, that one's a little bit different. That one requires us to be able to go to Skyland, as well as getting recipes and loot collecting those into blank scrolls. I'll explain in more detail once we end up getting to that aspect of the game. But as for right now, crystallized clouds is actually mined in a sky portal, and radiant shards are actually an item you get from completing sky dungeons. Now, I don't want to get that confused with the air world, the air elemental world. The air elemental world where you actually get air gems is different than the sky portal that I'm talking about, but we'll deal with that when we actually end up getting there. Man, live crafting takes a long time. So how the gardening works, I kind of explained this in one of the other videos, but I'm going to tell you again, it's kind of the same as the ring crafting. And if this is the first video you're tuning in, well, now I can tell you about it. So of course we have skill 0. Everything that we end up crafting in the newbie tab is going to give us 1 point. So sponges are a requirement because you actually craft a sponge, then you go out in the world and throw it into water, and it's going to exchange the sponge for a source block of water. That source block is then used to craft unripe compost. And then unripe compost you have to place on the ground, make sure that it's out in the sun, not buried in a cave of your cornerstone. And that's going to end up taking an hour before, like a real life hour, before it ends up turning into compost that you can actually use for crafting. Now, for the starting tier, the newbie tier, you can just craft grass and all sorts of stuff with just using the sunlight bulbs. We actually cannot end up getting to the dabbler until we've crafted 50 sponges or 50 pieces of poop. And then once we end up getting to the next tab, we're gonna have to craft 50 items in the dabbler tab to get up to 100. And then in order to get up to 150, you're gonna have to craft in the enthusiast. You can't just continuously craft stuff from the newbie tier. It's gonna constantly move up and move up and move up, and as such going to take a lot more resources as you go down the tree, right? But what you have to get up to is gardener, because gardener is when you get to Steed Feed, which you can see right here is actually very expensive, but ends up giving you 10 Steed Feed seeds that then get broken down to a random number between 1 to 5 or something like that. So keep that in mind. And then once you end up getting all the way to the end, you know, there's actually a couple just different fancy plants and stuff like that. But most of all, a springy sporaling mount, which of course, one of the old quotes of Trove is do it for the mastery, because you craft pretty much everything specifically for the mastery. Now let's see, hopefully we can end up making our, well, I guess we'll deal with the club card in 2 seconds here. I wanted to look at gear improvement. So the Enchanted Forge, as it says right there, is actually used, you use this forge to put pearls on your gear. I explained this before, but again, you can refer to my forging tutorial in the description. Needless to say, you put pearls on your gear to unlock new stats, to make current stats more powerful. A Twinkling Tome is going to reduce the level requirement, which comes in handy only at the late game when you have Radiant or Stellar gear, because then you can actually bring that down to level 1 so that any new class you get in the game, you can instantly put the best gear in the game on them, right? Or you can end up changing Radiant weapons effects or Stellar headgear effects, because once you end up crafting past Shadow 5 up to Radiant gear, you can actually put a custom video effects on your weapon. So you can have a flaming sword or an ice bow and stuff like that. It's not gonna actually have an effect other than just the looks. And once you get to Stellar gear, the hat ends up having a couple different effects as well. The Chaos Forge is used to randomize the stats on your gear. You can only randomize the 3rd and 4th stats. The first 2 are always going to be stuck at what they are, which only comes into play in the late part of the game because, you know, for a weapon, for example, it's always going to have physical or magical damage depending on the weapon type that it is. And then the second stat for most classes that you want to always go for is critical damage. So you got to try and find one out of a drop that you can actually do, and then you can randomize the 3rd and 4th stat, right? Storage. Now, this is where things get a little bit weird, but a Mega Flux tank pretty much just is a stack of flux. Flux is the main currency in the game, pretty much gold, but it converts into a stack of flux tanks. Most of all, that's used for trading with other players if you're not actually using the player market. Shadow Tower, will deal with this once we get a little bit further in the game. Now that we're actually in a Uber 1 portal, completing dungeons in the normal adventure world is going to actually give us Shadow Key fragments. And then, of course, as you get to higher and higher Uber portals, you're going to end up getting different types of fragments. So Moon Key fragments all the way up to Eclipse Key fragments. And then those are going to be used in the Shadow Tower, which we probably aren't going to have enough time to experiment with today. And then for the gems, this is a class key gem. This comes into play way, way later. This is at the late part of the game. You need 5,000 power rank in order to even use something like this. And you also have to be able to grind the Shadow Towers to actually get stuff like this. Same with the Stellar Empowered Gem. If you end up loot collecting a bunch of Empowered Gems, you'll get these fragments, and then you can recombine those together into an Empowered Gem box, which is going to give you a guaranteed stellar gem rather than like a radiant one or something to that effect, right? And then the glittering horseshoe, I cannot recommend. Do not actually get any of these. A jade clover is 1 times chance for a gem to level up. We'll talk about that once we get to the later portion of the game. And a horseshoe is only 1.5, so it's not a good trade-off to trade 10 potential levels on a gem for 1 chance. It's just not worth it. So anyways, let's see what is in the builder table. So the fun factory is just prop items. These are going to just be used for looks. It's just like fun items and stuff like that. While also it's going to end up having, oh no, that's not the prop items. Rip me. This is the fun factory is the one that has the jump pads and the air gust blocks that you can fly on, and it's going to push you up into the air and stuff like that. Trading post, self-explanatory. Barbershop, self-explanatory as well. Blocks and decoration. This workbench is where you end up getting the prop items. You unlock more prop items by completing recipe dungeons and then using the recipe. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. The cube converter is going to convert certain colored blocks into other colored blocks. So if you're wondering where's a darker red, well, it's right in there. And those you have to some of the blocks you actually have to find as a block recipe randomly out in the world when you're mining. You'll just get it as a random drop. The Wheel of Seasons is just a bunch of props that are related to seasonal stuff. And then there's the club world right here, which, we need 3.5k flux, but at least it's cheap. That is very, very cheap compared to the PC version. It actually costs somewhere around 60,000 flux to forge a club. So we got to get on that as soon as possible. Sorry that we're sitting in the menus. I know it's a bit abrasive, but thank you for being patient with me. But anyways, the Homeworld Heart, that is just for props. That's like liking the video, but you do it in the club worlds, right? More props to a club means that it's going to have a higher chance of showing up in the hub, and then more people can go and visit it and stuff like that. World Spring is for terraformers. You use these to create biomes within a club world, because a club world is something permanent that you can actually build, right? Then the Portal Bench is so that players can craft portals to your club world that then they could end up placing somewhere to highlight it or something like that. Community chest is shared amongst everybody in the club world, including people that aren't even members. And unfortunately, these chests I cannot recommend using for storage because they are going to delete items periodically because of a bug that somebody ended up finding out a long time ago. To duplicate items involve these chests, and now everybody's paying for it, right? Club chest, it's shared across all club members. Officer chest is shared across all officers in your club, which officers are like the highest rank that you can give outside of leader, but I wouldn't recommend promoting anybody to leader because then they can break everything. Needless to say, links are in the description for all the club stuff as well. And then here's all the portals. So for right now, honestly speaking, I would say to ignore all of this stuff if you're a new player, because these are very, very expensive resources to end up crafting. And all they really end up doing is just giving you a portal. So they're very, very useful for club worlds rather than your cornerstone, because if you're going to log in and join the club world, well, then you're going to want to have all of the portals accessible for everybody, but it's going to take a very long time for us to get to that point. However, we can actually already craft a Skyrealm portal right here, and we're going to definitely need one of these right here before we end up going, and don't worry, we'll go and complete some dungeons in 2 seconds here, folks. I just wanted to kind of explain all of this stuff out of the way so that we can kind of just move on from this point without having to explain any of it ever again, like seriously. So, oh, this is only placeable in club worlds. That's right. Rip me. Well, anyway, what do they want us to do? Ask to join someone's club world, which means I pretty much just have to go out and grind in the world because I gotta get my flux up. But maybe we'll be able to get something out of these chests. These are actually chests that you just randomly will get while you're mining stuff. These are just randomly gonna show up in your inventory, and they'll just have like ores and stuff like that. The rare item that they can end up having is a Digsley ally, and that ally is going to increase your lasermancy stat. And what that's going to do is make it so that you can actually dig faster. And you may or may not have noticed, but I got my cotton candy working. So that is if you link your current Glyph account that you already had before the console version, you're going to end up getting that ally for free. And what that ally is going to end up doing is just giving you Magic Find, which of course is going to help your drop chances, not drop chances, but it's going to increase the rarity of the items that you can find out in the world. Sometimes, but honestly, it's very, very random. But anyways, I gotta go and complete some dungeons, and sorry to say that we're gonna skip these right now, because don't you worry, folks. If you want to see me complete dungeons, of course, you can refer to my PlayStation. Jeez. You can refer to my PC Let's Play of the game, or you could end up just waiting until later, because don't worry, once we end up getting past all this bulk tutorial stuff and explaining how the game works and everything like that, then we're just going to be grinding, because that's pretty much all that you can end up doing in Trove. Also, this is going to be a good opportunity to show this, because I keep talking about those recipe dungeons. This is a recipe dungeon as signified by the scroll icon that you can actually see on the compass. This enemy's actually got thorns, that's why he's taking a little while to die here, right? But once you complete these dungeons, you're going to end up getting this chest instead of the normal chest, and the only piece of loot that you can actually get out of them is the recipe. So you saw we actually got a Highlands recipe. So if I actually go over to our inventory right here and use this, it's going to give us some mastery as well as the top part of a bed prop. So now we can actually craft this if we would end up crafting a workbench, which of course I didn't end up having. Got a nice piece of red gear here. Oh, this one's already red. Never mind, rip me. And then what was the other thing that I wanted to show? Oh yeah, that's right. Because we're in the Uber world, we're actually accessing gem boxes now. So I explained this briefly at the end of the last tutorial video, where I was talking about how the gem system kind of ends up working. And of course, I'm going to explain it in more detail once it comes upon us. But for right now, we are in an Uber world, and any Uber world all the way up to U9, you're going to end up getting these gem boxes. Normal Uber worlds, we're going to end up getting just this generic gem box, which is going to have any type of color. It's going to have fire, water, and air gems, as opposed to the elemental worlds, which you can go into to farm specific elemental gems. So if you want only water gems, go to the water world and stuff like that, right? So the way that this is going to work is you can open one box, and that bar down at the bottom is going to be the karma bar. Now, as you're opening boxes, that karma bar is going to slowly fill up. Patron users, of course, end up having half of a karma bar on some of the chests, but not all of them. And we ended up gaining ourselves an air gem. I guess this will be the opportunity to actually talk about the the gems themselves, right? So if I go into the inventory and if I grab this right here, we can't actually equip it, rip me, because we're not a high enough level for it. So if we go over to the gem system right here, you can see the water gem socket right here. We actually are a high enough level to use. And then this one right up here, the element or empowered gem is going to be level 12. This one's going to be level 23, while the first slot for the air gem is going to be level 13, so on and so forth, all the way up to level 30 being the final gem slot. Now, gems themselves are going to be pretty much the bulk of the game. Even gear takes a back seat to the gem system, because the stats that you end up getting on the gems are just that much more, because, you know, the game's trying to be all pay to win and stuff like that. So the way that it ends up working is, as you can see, we can't right now, but we could actually level up this gem. So it's level 1 right now. It's got health regen, magic damage, and health and max health. So an absolutely terrible gem. That one really, really sucks, and we should throw it out. But it generated with 2 stars. Now, you're going to find all sorts of gems. You're going to find them that have no stars. You're going to find them that has 1 star, and you're going to find them that has 2 stars. If we ended up finding a gem that had 0 stars, it would generate with 1 stat. And then once we ended up leveling that gem to level 5, the second stat would be available. And at level 10, the third stat would be available. So ideally, for the late game, you're going to focus all your attention on trying to find 2-star gems, because those gems are going to have all 3 stats already available on them. And as such, once you actually max those gems out, they're going to have a higher total amount of stats that a gem with 0 stars would end up having. I hope you're understanding this. I hope I'm explaining it. I know that there's not much visual representation. Now, as you can see, the required items to actually level this gem up is 2 pieces of what? That is gem dust right there. And quite obviously, if we loot collect an air gem, we're going to end up getting air gem dust. Loot collect a fire gem, you're going to get fire gem dust, so on and so forth. And that pretty much ends up being the bulk of the end game because of the rare chance of gems leveling up unless you have cash shop items, as well as just in general leveling up gems at the late game is just, it's almost impossible. Like, it's insane. It really is. So it's going to take a very long time before we get to there. Now, empowered gems, we're going to deal with those a little bit later because those are actually required from shadow towers. But needless to say, those gems are a lot more powerful than just the normal garbage gems that you can end up finding out in the world, and will actually end up having like the stats on them are going to be a little bit better than the default gems, but most of all, they're going to end up having special abilities. Like one of them called Pyro Disc will actually activate when you get into combat, and it's going to end up putting like a whirlwind of fire around your character. It's not really fire, it's just kind of red, but still, stuff like that ends up coming into play in the late game. So we're not going to deal with that probably today because we're probably not going to have enough time to get to shadow towers. Oh, and I'll also take the opportunity to explain a little bit of the dragon challenges, because you can see that there is a dragon challenge on the right. Again, I have tutorials on all of this stuff if you want to know. Hopefully these wings are good enough to get us over there. Good. I have tutorials on all this stuff so you can kind of get like a more brief explanation rather than just kind of randomly seeing it in this video, right? But needless to say, get out of here, you jerk. Dragon challenges are going to trigger every real life hour. So if it's 4 o'clock on your real life clock, it means that a dragon challenge just hit. And it's going to end up continuing regardless of whether you log into the game. So you're going to have 20 minutes every hour to complete a dragon challenge. And as you can see, complete dungeons in Candoria. You're gonna get 3 times bonus multiplier for Uber 5, 4 times for Uber 6 to 9. And then there's also going to be the bonus classes, which is also going to end up giving you more bonus points. Now, the way that the points end up working, as you see, you complete dungeons, and right beside Candoria, you see how there's that little badge that says 1? That depending on the version of Trove that we're running right here, not exactly sure, but if it's the old dragon challenges, it goes up to 5, I think. But if it's the version that the PC has right now, then it's only gonna go up to 3 tiers. And of course, you're just gonna have to complete as many dungeons as possible. So usually, like, if you're not strong enough, you just leech and kind of hang around while other people end up completing the dungeons for you, right? But that's gonna end up giving you dragon coins and dragon caches, and what those are used for is simply put to craft dragons. They are pretty much a required item. Most of all, it's the coins that are going to be the required item. And then, of course, there you see now it's 20 minutes past the hour, so that challenge is gone now. When you see dungeons like this, I would highly recommend running around them like a freak and running over all of the grass and stuff like that, because they're fantastic for Glim. This is in the Fey biome. Now, that said, if you actually want crazy amounts of Glim, get into the fishing, but we're probably not going to touch upon that for quite some time, because honestly speaking, it's not really a required profession, if you could even call it that, and also ends up taking hours and hours of real life time to end up getting to the later tiers. Aha, so we also ended up getting up to Mastery Rank 10. Now, at Mastery Rank 10, that's where you end up having the ability to make clubs in the first place, or join them and stuff like that, access to trading, and also access to the player market, and your first ally for most people anyways. And every time that you actually get something out of the claims menu, you can always click on find, and that's going to actually show it in the other menus right here. I don't know why Dr. Cubesley and stuff is there. That's kind of weird, but at least we get this mastery ally, which is going to give us superstition, which is a joke stat. It doesn't actually do anything. But let me show you a little bit of the player market here, and then I'm going to have to, well, we'll probably have to call it a day and deal with clubs in the next video, everybody. But as far as the player market is concerned, this is going to be the guts of the game for sure, because this is where the currency system ends up working, where you can search up any type of item in the game. Cotton candy, nobody has it right now, obviously, so nobody's going to be selling it, but you can sort by unit price, hide the items that you already have collected, change the currency, change the item type, and most of all, sell stuff. And of course, you're gonna have to grind up your qubits to end up getting more sell slots rather than just one at a time, right? But it's a fantastic system because otherwise, way back in the day when I started playing Trove on the computer, there was no player market like this. You had to actually bargain and barter with other players and then just meet them at a trade post and sell the item, right? But anyways, this video has already gone on long enough. Thanks for watching, folks. I'm hoping that I can cut this one down in editing. And thank you again for your patience. I'm really glad that these videos have been able to help so many of you, because otherwise, yeah, for me, it's taking quite a while to kind of explain the bulk of the game. And although the game isn't necessarily complex, it's very, very confusing for new players. That's one thing that I'm really starting to understand, even more so than I already knew before, because going into the console version like this, just fresh from the beginning, I'm very, very much enjoying it because it's giving me a fresh perspective as to what new players experience. And I'm honestly surprised at the amount of content that the game still just kind of expects players to understand rather than actually explaining it to them. So I know that I kind of lay it on a bit thick with these videos, kind of, you know, holding your hand for every step of the way. But once you end up getting most of these mechanics out of the way and kind of understand how this game ends up operating, then don't worry about it. You'll be an expert in no time, because there's not really that much depth to the game, while there is a lot of different confusing aspects of it. You know what I mean? But anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content. Sign out and stay epic, everybody.